Hey friends, tonight we're clocking in for the kind of shift that makes your inbox look like a love letter. We're touring the worst jobs in biblical times, the truly, blessedly awful ones. Not the psalm writing on a harp kind. I mean the my boss is a pharaoh, my tool is a rock, and my benefits package is not dying of dehydration kind. Think less stained glass, more stained tunic. So before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're actually a believer in stories that smell faintly of sheep, olive oil, and bad choices. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow it's always 2:07 a.m. for exactly 12% of you. Now dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft Sermon on the Mount breeze, get comfortable, and tuck your toes so imaginary scorpions don't file a complaint. Let's pause. Have you ever wondered who cleaned the cisterns and how often someone fell in? Did tanners really smell so bad they had to live by the sea? How many times can you wade a wine press before your feet become raisins? Did the priest who examined skin diseases ever consider switching to pottery? Could you survive night fishing on the Galilee with a net that weighs more than your mortgage? And what exactly does a Dungate employee put on a resume? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the ancient Near East. The year is irrelevant. Time is a circle. The sun is a tyrant. Your sandals are weeping. Your supervisor is named the weather. Clock in, child of God. You've got work to do. Let's start at the top of the to-do list. Water. You're up before dawn, shoulder braced beneath a yoke, trudging toward a well that's somehow uphill both ways. The line is already a prayer meeting mixed with a boxing match. The rope squeals, the wind lifts dust into your teeth, and the bucket comes up heavy, sloshing like a toddler's bath, but with fewer health codes. It's cardio, CrossFit, and community gossip, rolled into one soggy commute. Modern comparison. Imagine your entire day's hydration depends on wrestling a Home Depot bucket from the bottom of a stone podcast. Sip carefully. That splash is the sound of you doing 3 more trips. Let's talk equipment. Your yoke is a smooth wooden bar cut to your shoulders, polished by 1,000 mornings and one regrettable afternoon with a splinter. On each end, clay jars sway like stubborn toddlers, 20 to 30 litres apiece if you're feeling heroic. Goat skins if the jars were unlucky last week. You test the rope with your foot, hemp, braided, smelling like wet figs. And you learn to brace it across the well curb with a rhythm that spares your palms. Whoever designed the stone lip deserves an award and a chiropractor. It's time for breakfast. Bad idea. You don't dare drink until the jars are settled, because every swallow is a math problem. The more you sip now, the more you carry later. The queue shuffles forward. Someone quotes a psalm. Someone arranges a marriage. Someone insists their place in line was saved by an angel. You nod, because everyone knows wells are where stories happen. Rebecca met a stranger here and ended up in Genesis. Moses broke up a shepherd's spat and walked away with a wife. Jacob met Rachel and promptly invented the world's first flirtatious power lift by rolling a stone that took 3 men on Tuesdays. Now for the draw. Hand over hand you lower the bucket until the rope grows cool and the well air breathes against your wrist. The echo is a hollow hymn. You listen for the plunk, feel the tug, and start the long pull back. Arms burning in that sanctified way that makes you question the phrase, yoke is easy. The bucket surfaces, a tiny moon dripping. You pour into your jars with the tilt of an old magician, catch the runaway drip with your sleeve, and seal each mouth with a bit of linen against dust and thirsty cats. Delivery time. You take side streets that hug the shade, hugging walls the way secrets hug a town. Jerusalem, Jericho, Nazareth, it doesn't matter. Every house has a jar tucked in a cool corner. Every courtyard a thirsty bread maker who swears she asked for 2 ladles more yesterday. You set down the jars, feel your spine grow 2 inches, and listen for the only customer review that matters. Cold. On market days you do extra runs. On the day of preparation you might as well rent a second yoke and repent later. Let's talk technique. You pace yourself. Short breaths, soft steps, eyes on the ground because stones and sandals are not friends. You learn to descend cistern stairs sideways, 1 jar at a time. Shoulder scraping damp plaster that smells like limes and old storms. You memorize where the alley dog naps so you don't baptize him with lunch water. You charge a fair price because Joshua called your ancestors hewers of wood and drawers of water. And nothing says steady vocation like being in a job description older than your city gate. By midday, the 6th hour if you're counting like John's Gospel, the sun sits on your head like a manager who doesn't understand boundaries. If you're lucky, you pull a Samaritan strategy and sneak a solo run when no one else dares, trading crowds for heat. You tie a scarf across your mouth, because wind plus dust equals artisanal grit between your molars. You promise yourself a long drink after this one, and after this one keeps multiplying like loaves. Back at the well, you lean into the gossip portion. News spills faster than water. A new rabbi passed through. A caravan lost its way. The fig harvest might be early. Someone claims the bucket rope is demon-possessed. You quietly note it's just frayed, which is scarier. You test the knots again. You think of Jeremiah and cisterns and decide today is not the day to become an object lesson in Lamentations. Home stretch. You decant, you wipe, you cover. You set a ladle within reach and a boundary no one honors. You let yourself drink, a long pull that hits like prayer. It tastes of stone, air, and morning. You close your eyes. For exactly 6 seconds, you consider a career change to anything that doesn't slosh. Then a neighbor knocks, their jar cracked. Their cousin arrived with 6 children and a mysterious aversion to carrying things. You heave the yoke back onto your shoulders like a friendly cross and step outside because, of course, you do. Hydration is your ministry and your business model. Besides, rain is not scheduled until a prophet says so. You'll sleep well tonight, after one more run. Water keeps no office hours, and neither do you. Since you fetched it, you might as well clean where it sleeps. Welcome to the cistern, the ancient equivalent of a water feature with commitment issues. You're lowered by a rope into cool, echoing stone where the light turns green and the walls sweat. Your job, scoop out silt, frogs, and the mysterious sticky stuff labeled "Do Not Ask." Every sound is your heartbeat, every footstep a slide, and every sneeze is a small baptism. It's like cleaning your Brita filter from the inside while hoping Jeremiah isn't about to get tossed in with you. Pro tip: hold the rope with both hands. Hope the guy up top had breakfast. Let's talk equipment. Your toolkit is aggressively practical. A clay scoop with a handle worn smooth, a wicker basket for sludge, a flat wooden scraper for persuading grit to leave the plaster, and a lump of lime putty for patching cracks you swear weren't there yesterday. The rope is flax, braided thick, smelling faintly of hay and theology. You tuck an oil lamp into a niche and immediately regret it, because open flame and stale air get along about as well as Philistines and picnic baskets. You switch to a polished bronze mirror to bounce a shaft of sunlight down the wall, and now you're playing lighthouse for your own claustrophobia. It's time for orientation. You test the footing, slippery, like walking on well-buttered pottery. The floor is a sediment buffet, layered silt, grit, and a microcosm of tadpoles filing tiny noise complaints. You squelch, you scoop, you tip the basket into a bucket that rises to the surface with slow, judgy dignity. Up top, someone grunts, dumps, and sends the bucket back with a clunk that translates loosely as, "You missed a spot," in every language since Noah. Let's talk sound. Cistern acoustics turn the smallest movements into a choir. A drip becomes a drum. Your breath sounds like an animal you'd rather not meet. Every scrape of your scraper shivers through the dome and comes back to ask if you've considered a career in scroll copying instead. You decide to hum a psalm to keep rhythm. The echo harmonizes. Congratulations. You and the cistern are now a duet. Hazards? There's a short list. Slime that looks like stone until it remembers it's slime. Hairline cracks in the plaster that, left alone, become major plot points in next year's dry season. A concealed weep hole that shoots a thin, icy stream down your sleeve the moment you position yourself confidently beneath it. Also air quality, a phrase you didn't know existed but now respect like a prophet. You pause every few minutes to shout "still here," and the team above answers with the ancient affirmation, "Good." It's time for lunch. Bad idea. You do not eat inside a cistern unless you enjoy seasoning dates with calcium and secrets. You chew a fig anyway because willpower is a myth, and immediately discover that dust pairs badly with everything. Let's talk theology. As you scrape silt from the bowl of the city's thirst, you remember the scribes arguing broken cisterns that hold no water versus living water that flows. You are literally elbow deep in Exhibit A. You flick a frog toward the bucket and apologize to both God and the frog. You were not built for symbolism. You were built for sludge. Technique saves you. Work in spirals top down, so the plop from above doesn't baptize what you just cleaned below. Keep one hand on the rope at all times, not for lowering, but for reminding your brain that there is, in fact, an up. When you find a crack, clean it, press in lime putty, and smooth with the heel of your hand until the seam vanishes. The plaster is the cistern skin. You are applying ointment to a very calm, very damp patient. A neighbor pokes his head over the rim. How's it look? You consider saying like the belly of a whale, but settle on better. He asks whether it will hold through summer. You say if people stop washing goats in it. He nods like that was a suggestion, not a confession. Final sweep. You dredge the last of the silt into the basket, tip it skyward, and rinse the floor with a thin, carefully rationed splash. The water beads, then settles into a shine that whispers of cool cups and calm nights. You douse the lamp, call for the rope, and brace your feet against the wall as your crew hauls you toward daylight, lighter by 10 pounds of mud and one existential crisis. You emerge blinking, decorated like a clay idol, holding a frog you definitely didn't bring down. Someone offers you a sip from a fresh jar. It tastes like stone, effort, and mercy. You swallow, sigh, and check the rope one more time. The cistern is ready. You, less so. But at least you didn't become part of the water feature. Slide next to the sea, where the wind is strong, and the friends are distant. You're a tanner, turning hides into leather with salt, lime scraping, and a generous helping of do not light a candle. You rinse skins in seawater, soak them in lye, and scrape hair with a blade while praying your nose resigns. It's a righteous craft with a social tax. You smell like a theological lesson. Simon the tanner had a house by the sea for a reason, so the breeze could apologize to everyone. Think of it as working in a cologne called Old Testament. Top notes, goat. Base notes, eternity. Let's talk pits. Your workshop is a geometry of vats. Brine to cure, lime to loosen hair, rinse water to make your hands remember sin, and deep tanning pits steeped with bark tea, oak, sumac, acacia, gall nuts, everything a tree can offer to persuade skin not to rot. The hides arrive stiff and salted, stacked like unsent letters. You soak them till they relax, then flip them over a beam and take the fleshing knife to the underside, slicing away fat and stringy tenacity. It's a spa day for dead cows with the soundtrack of seagulls and regret. It's time for breakfast. Bad idea. Lye is caustic. Lime is feisty. And even dates taste like cleaning products if you forget which hand did what. You rinse your fingers in seawater and count to 20 longer than usual. The blade flashes, the hair peels in satisfying curls, and you mutter thanks for dull mornings and sharp tools. Your apron is a biography of stains. Your sandals have accepted their fate. Process matters. After liming and dehairing comes the part no one advertises, baiting. You delime the hide to calm it down, then bathe it in an enzyme brew polite people call fermented, and less polite people call a decision. It breaks the fibers, softens the temper, and gives the leather a future that includes bending. You stir with a paddle and look away because dignity is delicate, and you are doing holy work that will one day become sandals for a prophet or a strap for a soldier. You hum a psalm because the neighbors won't. Let's talk tan. The pits of bark liquor smell like a woodland trying to forgive you. You layer hides in, hair side out, pressing them down with poles until they sink and stop arguing. Days become weeks. You graduate solutions from weak tea to strong theology until the collagen bonds with tannins and decides to be leather instead of memory. You pull a piece to test it, color rich, water beading, grain smooth. The sea breeze makes it flutter like a flag that says useful at last. Finishing is an exercise in patience. You stretch the hides on frames, lacing edges with thong and cranking each morning to keep the fibers honest. You oil with olive or rendered fat, rubbing until the surface sighs. Smoke is optional, sunshine is not. You burnish with a stone, bend, twist, and listen. Good leather talks back with a low creak that sounds like a promise. You trim straps, punch holes with an awl, and stack them in coils that will become belts, harness, water skins, scroll ties, quiet infrastructure nobody cheers for until it snaps. Social life. Welcome to the edge of town. Contact with carcasses makes you ritually unclean till evening, so you schedule your prayers with a calendar and a wash basin. People wrinkle noses. Kids dare each other to run past your door and live. That's fine. Peter lodged with a tanner in Joppa when the Lord rewrote the guest list of heaven. If God chose a tanner's roof to open the church's menu, perhaps the wind carries more than smell. Safety, please. Lime burns, lie bites. Pits are deeper than pride. You keep a pole laid across each vat so no one baptizes themselves by accident. You mark the dangerous ones with a rope and a loud voice. You respect the quiet chemistry. Alkali to open, acid to close, time to mend. You know, more than most, that transformation takes patience and stings a little. Modern comparison. You run a chemistry lab without eyewash, a startup with no HR, and a customer experience team that mails product by donkey. Your quality control is a calloused thumb and a frown. Your reviews are written on people's feet. By sundown, you are salted, limed, tanned, and, let's be honest, banned from most dinner parties. You walk home along the shore while the waves practice forgiveness and the gulls refuse to. You pass a fisherman mending nets with your twine and a merchant cinching a bag with your thong. No one waves. Everyone uses your work. You don't just make leather. You make civilization smell faintly worse and function infinitely better. Step out to the fuller's field, tastefully located downwind of respectable noses. Your job is washing wool with a cleansing cocktail of water, clay, and fermented ammonia. Yes, that kind. You stamp, you knead, you rinse, you stomp again, and the fibers whiten as your dignity greys. The sun bleaches the cloth and your soul, while your calves become sanctified steel. Modern equivalent, boutique laundromat, if the detergent aisle were replaced with items collected in jars behind the stable. At least the prophets know where to find you. You are the before and after photo in one weary pair of feet. Let's talk vats. They're lined up like Judgment Day. Rinse, scour, beat, and do not inhale. The first is sweet water to coax out dust. The second is full of fuller's earth, clay that grabs grease like gossip. The third holds boreth, an alkaline brew that could strip sin and lanolin in one pass. The fourth is your signature fragrance, fermented urine, now politely called ammonia. It's chemistry before chemistry school, and you are the professor with permanently alarmed nostrils. It's time for technique. You lay the woven wool in the vat, fold it like a reluctant blanket, and begin the walking. Heels down, toes up, press and rock, a rhythm older than sandals. The fabric thickens as the tiny fibers lock into each other. Fulling isn't just cleaning. It's felting the cloth into a cozy, indestructible sermon illustration. Your legs burn, your back sings a lament, and the vat walls echo every slosh like a choir of very damp angels. Sensory check. The air is a cocktail of sun-warmed wool, wet clay, and fumes that could part a small Red Sea. Your hands go slick with lanolin, that stubborn blessing from sheep that makes the cloth gleam, and your grip heroic. The clay slurry coats your forearms in, a chalky glaze. Somewhere a fly makes life choices. You breathe through your mouth, which turns out to be worse. Let's talk tools. You've got wooden clubs to beat stains into submission, paddles to stir, and a scraper board to work the edges. When it's time to rinse, you heave the dripping mass to the stream, kneel on flat stones, and let living water do its patient work. You throttle the fabric like it owes you rent, then wring with a twist that could open jars for every grandmother in Judea. Drying isn't guesswork. You haul the cloth to frames, tenter frames, stretching the edges with little hooked pegs. Yes, tenter hooks. That tight, breathless waiting while the sun sets the fabric, and you pray the wind minds its own business. You adjust tension so it dries square, not rhombus, because customers can spot a trapezoid at 20 cubits. The light moves, the color shifts from weary to clean. Somewhere, Malachi nods at the phrase, fuller's soap, and you decide that's at least one positive review. It's time for lunch. Bad idea. You pick at bread in the shade and forget which hand stirred which vat. One bite in, you suddenly understand why the fuller's field lives outside the city gates. You rinse your mouth like you're repenting and promise to mark the no-snack hand with twine tomorrow. You will forget. Again. Customers arrive with opinions. One wants width. One wants whiteness. One wants the stain removed from a feast that, based on color and radius, was pomegranate related. You manage expectations with the calm of a Levite examining mildew. We can do much. Only God can do miracles. You offer them a pickup time that depends on the sun, the wind, and whether the neighbor's goats respect boundaries. They won't. Quality control time. You rub the cloth between fingers. If it squeaks, the grease is gone. You hold it to the light. If it glows, the weave is pleased. If it sulks, back to the vat it goes, because excellence and ammonia are married now. For stubborn marks, you dab with a paste of clay and alkali sun bleach, and whisper something between a prayer and a threat. It works more often than you'd like to admit. The prophets pass by. Isaiah once chose this field for a meeting because everyone knows where you are. Outside the walls, by the conduit, under the conspicuous banner of please, not upwind. You stand there, calves braced, arms speckled, looking like a statue of industry sculpted from soap and consequence. Respectable people wrinkle their noses, then bring you their linens anyway, because holiness may reside in the temple, but cleanliness takes a detour through your vats. By sundown, the frames hum tight in the breeze, cloth bright and square, your feet pruning in a way sandals cannot explain. You drag the clubs back into the shed, cap the vats, and thank the Lord for wind. You wash off in the stream, which feels symbolic and also necessary, and wring your tunic with professional excellence. You head home, walking past perfectly folded garments that will make someone else look righteous. No one applauds. That's fine. Being a fuller means two things are certain. God sees, and your neighbors smell. Head toward Jerusalem's dung gate, where essential worker means essential to everyone's nose. Your job is collecting, carting, and drying animal dung, so families can cook dinner without setting the olive grove on fire. It's sustainable, renewable, and disrespectful to linen. You pat it into tidy cakes, lay them in the sun, and try not to think about Ezekiel's bread. The scent is persistent. Modern comparison? Imagine your neighborhood watch is also the sanitation department, compost engineer, and smoke detector all in one. Congratulations. You're the reason the stew is warm and the city isn't. Let's talk tools. Your kit is simple but persuasive. A broad wooden scoop, a rake with teeth that know regret, a flat trowel for patty making, and a two-wheeled cart that squeaks like it has theological objections. You tie a cloth across your face, which filters nothing and makes you look like a bandit who lost a bet. Sandals only. The job is messy, and boots weren't invented to suffer like this. It's time for breakfast. Bad idea. Bread and figs pair poorly with your morning route. Behind the stables, along the market lanes after the donkeys commute, and through the alleys where goats have opinions about zoning. You work fast because the sun is both dryer and judge. The earlier you lay the patties, the less they audition for sculpture in the afternoon wind. Process matters. Fresh dung is too wet and too confident. You mix it with straw, chaff, or chop reeds until it holds shape. Think adobe with a personality. You slap handfuls into flat rounds, press them against warm rock walls, or lay them in neat rows on packed earth. The smell rises like a psalm nobody requested. Flies assemble. You become a master of the slow, dignified shoe. Roots, then. You make a sweep of the city's animals. The cattle pens outside the gate, the donkey lines, the sheepfolds on the hill. Shepherds nod. Bakers wave you down. The olive oil seller pretends not to know you. When the cart's full, you trundle toward the south, past the refuse heaps and ash mounds in the valley of Hinnom, where smoke is a constant sermon illustration, and your job description fits the scenery a little too well. You do not linger on metaphors. You have drying to do. Let's talk customers. Household ovens, the tabun, the tanner, love your product. Dry patties burn steady and hot with a smoke that hovers underneath the bread, seasoning it with ancient. Bakers buy by the stack. Potters buy by the cart. Widow next door buys 4 and pays in barley. because cash is shy this week. You keep a tally on a wax tablet and a ledger in your head. When it rains, and when it rains it laughs, you cover stacks with reed mats and pray. Wet patties are just future. Patties with trust issues. Safety? Keep it straightforward. You do not dry near open flame for obvious reasons, and also for hair-related ones. You stack patties with finger-width gaps so the air moves through like a patient deacon. You do not set them where children play. Ask me how I know. And you give the temple area a wide berth. Ritual cleanliness is above your pay grade, and you don't need to star in Leviticus Volume 2. It's time for lunch. You wash your hands like you invented hygiene. Twice with ash water, once with lemon if you're flush. You sit in the shade of the wall and eat quietly while your inventory bakes. The view? A city that loves bread, hates smoke, and does not want to know your middle name. You take a sip from your skin. It tastes faintly of leather, sun, and victory over squeamishness. Afternoon runs are deliveries. You carry armfuls of sun-browned fuel into courtyards where mothers knead dough and children debate where the cat went. You stack patties carefully away from sparks and toddlers. The baker tosses you a hot round flatbread in thanks. You accept with the grave nod of a man who knows why it's crispy, and also why it's better not to mention it. Modern comparison? Your municipal waste, HVAC, an energy grid with a cart for a logo. Your job is the intersection of sustainability, and please take that outside. You get no parades, only a path to walk with fewer pebbles, because everyone quietly appreciates not freezing at dinner. By sundown, the rows have dried, the stacks are tied with twine, and your cart sighs home. You wash at the public fountain until the water stops judging you. The smell lingers, top notes, livestock, mid notes, sunshine, bass notes, perseverance. You shrug into evening like a clean tunic. You don't cook the stew. You make 100 stews possible. And that, despite everything, is almost pleasant to think about, preferably upwind. With housekeeping, Terumat Hadeshen before sunrise. The wind lifts fine ash into your eyes, and you look like a man kissed by a chimney. Think church janitor, but your vacuum is a brazen altar and your boss is a cloud by day. You'll go home clean on the inside and grey on the outside. Let's talk tools. In the half light, you choose the silver shovel, the ash pan, and a long-handled rake that humbles pride on contact. The bronze altar radiates a tired warmth. Coals wink beneath a skin of white. You test the edge of the shovel against the grating, soft, then sure, and lift a small chosen portion of ash. Not all of it yet. First, the teruma, an offering of yesterday's faithfulness, set gently on the east side of the ramp, a quiet amen before breakfast. It's time to wash. You stop at the laver because soot and linen are not friends. Cold water bites your fingers awake. You dry on the air because towels aren't in Leviticus. Linen tunic, sash, shorts, turban, no wool, because sweat and sanctuaries do not date. You breathe, step, and feel the stone under bare feet, cool as a kept promise. Now the dance begins. You nudge live coals to the center, like gathering a small, glowing congregation. With the rake, you level the bed. With the shovel, you lift yesterday's story. Fat-licked ash, spent wood, the ghost of offerings, and lay it where it belongs. Sparks rise like tiny psalms and fade into the thinning night. The perpetual fire murmurs, "Don't mind me," and you nod back, because nothing terrifies you like a flame that stops. Let's talk wood. 2 logs by rule each morning, dry as obedience. You angle them so the draft feeds the heart of the fire. Build a little teepee of certainty, and listen for the low crackle that says, the day can begin. Somewhere inside, the gold altar waits for incense. Out here, it's the steady job of heat and smoke, bread and bone. History interrupts. In later years, too many eager feet raced up this ramp for the honor of ash lifting. So the leaders invented a lottery at dawn. You are grateful. Your sandals love procedure. You'd rather draw lots than elbows. The only stampede you want is the silent one of sparks climbing into morning. Safety matters. You don't lean past the grate. You don't leave the rake where a robe can find it. You don't wear yesterday's garments to haul ashes outside. You change, per Moses' memo. Clean linen for inside, other clothes for the ash pile beyond the camp. Because holiness and hauling take turns, and laundry is part of liturgy. It's time for breakfast. Bad idea. Bread tastes like smoke when you stand this close, and ash has a way of deciding its seasoning. You settle for a date when you're done. The senses take attendance. Warm metal, sweet fat perfume lingering from the last peace offering, smoke that quilts the courtyard and curls under your turban. Ash dust paints your eyelashes. Your breath leaves small clouds that look like agreement. The eastern sky edits from ink to indigo. Roosters practice optimism. Modern comparison. You are the facilities team for a miracle. You keep the pilot light of an entire nation on. Your checklist is Leviticus 6. Your work order says perpetual. And your performance review happens in weather and wonder. Final sweep. You gather strays, tidy the ramp, brush a grey thumbprint off the altar's lip, because details are devotion with boots on. You bow your head without meaning to. It happens here. Gratitude sneaks up like dawn. When the gates open and the first worshipper steps into the court, the fire is ready. The ash is honoured. The place looks like we meant this. You change garments, carry the rest outside, and tip it onto the ash heap where yesterday gets to rest. A little wind lifts a ghost of grey that settles on your shoulder, like a blessing that didn't learn boundaries. You'll head home through quiet streets, eyes stinging, heart oddly rinsed. Clean within, grey without. A fair trade for a day that won't start until you do. It's night on the water. That slippery hour where stars argue with waves. You're barefoot on a boat, hauling wet rope that bites your palms and loves your spine. The net goes out in an arc like throwing your back into destiny. Then you wait. Water slaps the hull, someone coughs, and the lake breathes through you. Good night. Breakfast is funded. Bad night. You repair nets and pretend you weren't crying. Then a rabbi on the shore suggests the other side, and suddenly you're rich in sardines and sermon illustrations. Modern comparison. Uber driving, but the passenger is the wind. Let's talk equipment. Your boat is cedar and common sense. 8 meters of creak and courage, tar in the seams, a mast you only raise when the breeze behaves. Cork floats, stitch the top line of your net. Lead sinkers stud the bottom like a necklace that resents you. The mesh is linen you scrub by daylight and mend when the world's asleep. The knife at your belt is for rope, not drama. There's a brazier near the bow, a small amber eye that lures sardines toward your living room rug. It's time for technique. You coil the cast net careful as a prayer. Weight on your forearm, a twist in your hips. 1, 2, throw. An open circle of hope lands with a soft thud that the lake either accepts or returns. Trammel nets hang like 3 curtains. Fine, coarse, fine. Fish push through the first, balloon the middle, and get wrapped by the last, like trying to walk through a bead curtain with dignity. If you're signing, a crew on shore hauls the long wings while you row the ark. Either way, it's teamwork and silence, because fish hate shouting. The senses lean in. The night smells of tar, fish oil, and a hint of fig from the lunch you'll want at 3 a.m. Your feet find the plank grooves by memory. The Golan sends down a whisper of cool air that can become a slap without warning. Katabatic winds that turn lullabies into headlines. The water is black glass until the moon forgets itself and lays a silver road you could swear leads somewhere warmer. Let's talk fish. Tilapia nap like old men. Barbel skulks. The Kinneret sardine, small, schooling, and easily talked into your boat by firelight, pays most of the bills. You don't name them. You do, however, thank the Lord for their decision-making skills when the net comes up peppered with silver commas. Each one another line in the story of rent getting paid. Then there's the paperwork. Licenses cost more than they should. Taxes skim the surface before you do. A collector appears on the shore at sunrise with opinions and a tablet, and you practice keeping your face like the lake, calm on top, currents underneath. Magdala's salters take the bulk, packing fish into barrels with layers of salt till the world can ship your night's work to places your feet will never go. You keep a basket back for home, because even workers eat. It's time for repairs. Bad idea. You'll do them anyway. Fingers numb, eyelids arguing. You find the tear by feel and stitch with a netting needle, knot by old knot, until the hole stops pretending its character. You rinse the linen at the shallows and hang it on pegs to dry, a damp flag announcing, "We tried." The sun will bleach what the lake didn't. Storm drill. You rehearsed it in your bones. Drop the sail, swing the prow, ride the chop at a slant. Every hand works. Every prayer qualifies. Sometimes the squall passes as quickly as it swaggered in. Sometimes it doesn't. And you mutter that if a stranger stands up and tells the wind to hush, you're listening. Modern comparison. You're a night shift contractor whose clients are invisible and whose performance review is weighed in kilograms and silence. Surge pricing happens when a school swims dumb. The app is the sky. Dawn turns the hills pink. Your shoulders hum like a hive. You beach the boat, count the catch, divide shares. Boat, crew, owner, tax. Then whatever's left remembers your children's names. You wash the nets because Luke said fishermen do, and because dirty gear tells on you. You walk home with scales in your hair and a story in your mouth you might not tell. Sleep will come like a net from above. If the night was good, you'll dream of coin-bright fish. If not, you are going to fix nets anyway. This way the lake won't notice. Wander out past civilization, where your co-workers eat grass and your enemies wear fur. You're a shepherd, low status, high vigilance. Days are dust and bells. Nights are stars and eyeshine. You guide, you guard, you whack thistles with a staff that doubles as a strongly worded letter. Your cloak is a blanket, your lunch is bread, and your alarm system is a dog with better theology than some kings. Modern comparison, night shift security, except the building is moving and occasionally bites you. The angels tend to announce things on your break. Let's talk tools. You carry a staff with a crook for snagging ankles and rescuing opinions, and a short rod, a weighted club, that settles negotiations with thorns and things that growl. A sling rides your belt with smooth river stones that whistle past stray noses to redirect them without bruising dinner. A reed pipe keeps time and morale. The flock knows your tune better than your relatives do. It's time for breakfast. Bad idea. You tear bread and olives while walking, because stopping means someone eats a plant that isn't a plant. Dew slicks your sandals. The morning smells like wild thyme and optimism. You check hooves for stones, eyes for cloudiness, noses for trouble. You dab oil on ears and heads, a blend of olive and herbs, because nose flies and scab are real, and you anoint my head with oil was a veterinary note before it was a verse on a mug. Water first. You scan the wadi for a still pool, not the racing part. Sheep treat whitewater like a dare. You lead down a path you carved last week, step by step, whispering and clicking until the flock calms. They drink with the seriousness of lawyers. When they're done, you count them under the rod, each one passing beneath your hand so you feel bones and breathe numbers. It's arithmetic with bleating. Let's talk movement. Grazing is choreography. Nibble, step, scan, whistle, repeat. You read the ground like a scroll. Green hints under brittle stems, the shadow of a fig, the line of a terrace that holds just enough life to feed 40 teeth and a dream. Midday heat presses. You tuck them into shade, back to stone, noses to breeze. You sit with your back to the flock, which is how trust works out here. Hazards. A short list with teeth. Wolves test the edges. Jackals practice choir. Once in a while, something larger remembers the old days when lions lived in these hills. Thieves prefer night and confusion. Your dog lives for this moment. Shoulders low, tail level, eyes like lit coals. Voice that says, "Not today." You lift the sling and send a warning shot that smacks a rock inches from arrogance. The hills throw the sound back like applause. It's time for lambing. Bad idea. It happens when it happens, which is always when the sky is cold and decisions are slippery. You kneel in dust, coax life with quiet words, clear a nose, rub with your cloak. A ewe nickers, the lamb sneezes. You learn again how mercy looks like dirty hands and a backache. You carry the weak over your shoulders, legs draped, heartbeat against your neck. It's not heroic. It's Tuesday. Night falls fast out here. You gather the flock into a low stone fold. Rough walls, thorny branches laced across the top. An opening that is both door and job description. You lie across it, body as gate, rod within reach. The stars argue theology. Your pipe answers with a tune that keeps fear's voice small. The dog does patrols like an usher with a list. Let's talk weather. When the east wind picks up, you turn backs to it. When the storm threatens, you angle toward the fold early. Rain flattens the smell of lanolin into something almost pleasant, like a wool cloak, remembering it was on a sheep. Lightning stitches the sky. You count the breaths between flash and rumble, because knowledge is power and also bedtime. Modern comparison. You manage a mobile, edible asset with zero appreciation for schedules. Your KPIs are all alive. Your annual review is a shearer's grin and a ledger in wool. Benefits include sunsets and meaningful eye contact with creation. Just before dawn, the hills lift their heads. You pipe your call, the flock stirs, and nobody asks for overtime. You count again, one by one, hand on wool, voice on names, all here. You shoulder the rod and staff and start the day's slow miracle of turning grass into tomorrow. If anything dramatic happens, it'll be when you sit down, take a bite, and say, finally a moment. That's when heaven clears its throat. You learn not to complain. Breaks are when the best announcements arrive. You clock out whenever the flock decides to lie down. They're sheep. They run the place. You just keep them from proving it. When the harvesters pass, you begin. You glean, the ancient gig economy with rules from God and payment in barley. You keep your eyes down for dropped heads, your back bent like a question mark, and your hope pointed toward kindness. The heat is heavy, the work is honest. A good field leaves you with dinner and dignity. A better field leaves you with a future and a story. Modern comparison? Couponing, but with sandals and courage. You're proof that mercy looks like don't harvest to the edges. Let's talk rules. They're old and kind. Don't reap to the corners. Don't go back for what you forgot. Leave some for the poor, the stranger, the widow, the orphan. Leviticus 19, Deuteronomy 24. Fine print that reads like a hug. Your work begins where someone else stopped, behind the sickles and ahead of hunger. No fighting, no shoving, no dibs in the corners. Just quiet patience and fast hands. Equipment is minimal. A headscarf to shade your thoughts, a sling bag woven from last year's mercy, and a short stick to flick stray heads of grain from thistle claws. Your sandals remember better summers. Your palms learn to rub barley between thumb and forefinger until the husk sighs away. If you're clever, you tuck a square of cloth at your waist to turn into an emergency apron when hope overflows. It's time for water. Bad idea to forget it. You scan for the jars the owner set under the terebinth. If he's decent, he lets gleaners drink. You tilt the dipper carefully because you earned every drop by walking through the sun. The liquid tastes faintly of clay, cool as a good word. You whisper thanks for both. Technique matters. You watch the rhythm of the reapers, sweep, cut, bind. After they pass, you move in a checkerboard, eyes tuned for stray beard, bent stem, overlooked treasure. You gather into small sheaves, just enough to grip, then tie with a twist of straw. Every stoop is a prayer. Every handful is agreement with Providence. Chaff freckles your arms. Crickets critique your posture. Let's talk kindness. A foreman glances your way and pretends not to see what he absolutely sees. The reapers are accidentally dropping more than usual. He coughs, which is code for don't be shy. You meet his eyes and look away, because gratitude is better behaved unsaid. Somewhere in your memory, Ruth is gleaning here too. Moabite, brave, the original how it started, how it's going. You're not writing a book, but you're reading one with your hands. Hazards. The small ones sting, nettles, sun, gossip. The big one is shame. You fight it with work, with the laws on your side, with the knowledge that this field is a sermon someone decided to obey. And yes, the risk of harassment hovers in some fields. You choose your rows wisely and your exits quicker than rumor. It's time for lunch. You sit at the very edge of shade and pretend your bread is bigger. If the owner sends roasted grain from the heap, you take a pinch and cheer inwardly, because kindness tastes like smoke and salt. You share a crust with another gleaner, and the air lightens by a handful. By late afternoon, your bundle has grown bold. You shift the load higher, hips remembering the physics of enough. At the threshing floor, you rub some heads to test the yield. The kernels ping into your palm like small brass coins. An ephah, not today. A basket, yes. Enough to grind, knead, bake, and exhale. Modern comparison? Extreme couponing, where the coupons are commandments and the store is a horizon. Your loyalty program is covenant. The points redeem into bread. You trail home at dusk, shoulders humming, a warm sack thumping your hip in a steady amen. Neighbors nod, no questions necessary. You pour the grain into a jar with a sound that heals. Tomorrow you'll grind at the quern, mix with water, pat into rounds, and feed a small universe. You lie down, back still a punctuation mark, and smile at the thought that goodness has corners, and you found them. Travel back to where quotas were invented. Your shift begins in a pit, stomping clay with chaff and whatever straw you can scavenge, since apparently you now do procurement. A foreman with a stick counts bricks like their sins, and the sun bakes everything into uniform despair. Your shoulders learn numbers the hard way, modern comparison, corporate restructuring, but your spreadsheet is a pile of mud, and the meetings involve yelling in hieroglyphics. Deliverables on your head. Let's talk tools. Your kit is primitive and perfectly adequate for ruining a back. A wooden rake, a flat tamper, a 2 or 4 cell mold rubbed with oil so the mud lets go, and a water jar you treat like a co-worker who knows secrets. The pit is Nile silt with personality, clay-rich mud that grabs ankles and makes promises. You add straw or chaff because fiber keeps bricks from cracking when the sun tells the truth. Today's straw? Whatever you can pry from cattle yards and grain floors, because Pharaoh discovered productivity hacks. It's time for water. Bad idea to skimp. Too much and the mix sags. Too little and it crumbles. Just right and it squelches like a satisfied hippo. You pour, you rake, you stomp. Feet do what mixers will someday do, kneading slurry till straw vanishes and the mud shines like coffee you can't drink. You work to a rhythm, 3 steps forward, 2 back, 1 moment of, why is sand in my soul? Technique matters. You drag the molds onto a level bed of sand, toss handfuls in so they release clean, then shovel mud into each cell, overfill, and strike off the excess with a board. It's frosting a cake that insults you. A helper lifts the mold, leaving 4 shining loaves of future architecture. You dust the edges with sand, move the frame, repeat. The field becomes a grid of damp hope. Let's talk counts. Quotas don't care about feelings. A taskmaster strolls, reed stick tapping his palm, tallying rows, glaring at straw content like he invented quality control. Israelite overseers, your own people drafted into middle management, flinch at both ends. You learn to stack in tens, to mark every 100 with a small shard planted upright, to pray no one trips over record keeping. Sun drying is its own shift. After a few hours, when the bricks grow skin, you tip each one gently on edge for airflow. Flip too early and they slump. Too late and the bottom glues itself to Egypt. By afternoon they harden enough to stack under shade mats. Little huts of reeds that pretend to be kindness. Rain is rare, but when it comes, it arrives like HR. Unannounced and bad for production. It's time for lunch. Bad idea to stop moving. You eat standing bread and onions, washed with water that tastes like yesterday's shovel. You keep one eye on the foreman, one on the children darting in to sell stale dates, and one on the sun, which somehow has 3 settings. Up, upper, and this is personal. Hazards. Mud sucks sandals off. Molds pinch fingers. Backs complain in languages older than pyramids. The straw scratches. The flies applaud. The stick reminds. And when the quota remains unmet, the speech is familiar. You are idle, idle. You look down at your mud-laced calves and wonder what idle looks like on a wall relief. Let's talk theology. You remember the stories of Joseph and how a famine once met mercy along this river. Now mercy hides under straw scraps. You repeat the name the elders whisper, I am, into the mud. And the mud doesn't answer, but your breath steadies. Hope is the only tool they can't confiscate. Modern comparison. You're an unpaid intern in a company that invented deadlines, wearing a uniform made of dust and expectations. Performance metrics? Qubits by, still not enough. Team building. You carry your friend's stack when his knee fails, because sticks are faster than sympathy. By dusk, your field glints with hundreds of small sunsets. The count is agonizingly close. You tamp the last row, wipe mud with more mud, and present the tally. The foreman grunts, scrapes a mark on his tablet, and waves you away like weather. You wash at the canal, which removes nothing but the day's permission to keep hating it. You trudge home past walls built by yesterday's shoulders, looking like a resume written in clay. Tomorrow, you'll raid another threshing floor for straw and call it logistics. For now, you stretch out under a sky big enough to hold a promise. The quota sleeps. You will too. After you stop counting in stacks, descend to the sea that forgot how to be cheerful. You scrape salt from crusted flats and gather tar clumps that float up like ancient secrets. The air tastes metallic. The sun bullies your shadow. The ground cuts your sandals. The wind steals your water. You stack crystals into baskets that swear vengeance on your spine. Modern comparison. Working retail on Black Friday if the store were made of knives and sunscreen. Let's talk tools. Your scraper is a flat wooden blade banded with bronze, good for shaving crust without shaving toes. A short pick persuades stubborn crystals clinging to the pan like theology. Baskets are palm fiber, wide-mouthed, lined with reeds so the finer salt doesn't leak away like your optimism. For bitumen, the Dead Sea's floating punctuation, you keep a hook on a pole to snag tar lumps before they drift out of reach and turn into someone else's paycheck. It's time for technique. You don't wade, you skim. The shoreline is a trap. Salt honeycombs over brine like a pastry that wants you to fall through. You test with the pole, step on what answers like rock, and work the edges of natural pans where evaporation has left thick sheets. Shave in thin passes. Big chunks shatter and send razors at your ankles. Salt pops free with a sound halfway between glass and gossip. Then you heap it onto reed mats to dry, because even salt can be wet here. The sun does the heavy lifting. You do the apologizing to your shoulders. Bitumen time. Locals call it the sea's burps. Dark rafts of asphalt that bob up after an earthquake murmurs or a heat lull breaks. You spot a black smear on the pewter water. Row a skin boat cautiously, pitch on pitch, has a certain irony, and scoop the tar into a clay-lined tub. It's sticky, stubborn, and surprisingly valuable. Ship seams love it, walls drink it, and embalmer caravans pay good silver to turn kings into long-term projects. You pry, the lump slurps, and your forearms become a career choice. Let's talk uses. Your salt heads everywhere. To kitchens, stew knows your name. To salting troughs for herds. To the temple where every offering you shall season with salt. Leviticus 2:13. The priests buy fine, bright crystals. The rest of the world gets what breaks off your baskets. Salt preserves fish from Galilee, olives from Jericho, contracts between families. Covenant of salt isn't just poetic, it's paperwork with seasoning. Asphalt goes into mortar, waterproofing baskets. Moses' little ark had pitch cousins, and sealing jars that will cross deserts without turning into archaeology. The senses file complaints. The air is a hot coin. Breathing feels like licking a bronze mirror. Your lips crisp at the edges. Your skin shines like the underside of pottery. Taste buds reassigned to brine. The horizon wobbles behind a heat veil, while En-Gedi's cliffs stand there pretending they're helpful. Once in a while, a merciful wind pushes down the canyon and smells faintly of balsam and goats. You forgive everything for 7 seconds. It's time for lunch. Bad idea. Your bread instantly becomes an experiment. You eat anyway, under a scrap of shade you bribed into existence with 3 sticks and a prayer. Dates, a sliver of dried fish, ironically, preserved with your morning. And a swallow of water you ration like prophecy. You do not drop your cup. The ground drinks faster than people. Hazards, sinkholes that open with the manners of spoiled princes. Salt spickles that file your sandals down to suggestion. Dehydration that sneaks up quietly and begins rearranging your plans. You pace yourself, work 10, sip 2, rest 4, because there's no shade clause in numbers. When the wind flips angry, you pack fast. The sea's mood can polish a man into a pillar if he isn't careful. You do not joke about Lot's wife. You nod toward the south and keep your eyes forward. Modern comparison. You run a chemical plant powered by weather, manufacture payroll in open air, and negotiate with geology. Your HR is a hat, your safety officer is a rope, and your product line is Covenant and caulking. By late afternoon, the basket's crust over, crystals flashing like coins you cannot eat. You shoulder the load, knees filing grievances, and trek toward the Jericho Road, where traders pay without haggling too much, because salt negotiations tend to be thirsty. You set aside the finest for a priest runner. The rest heads to kitchens and kilns. Asphalt gets a separate jar and a satisfied nod from a man with Egypt on his itinerary. You wash your hands in a trickle at Ein Gedi that tastes like reprieve. The salt clings anyway, a souvenir you didn't ask for. You will sleep heavy tonight, body humming, lips reminding you to bring more water tomorrow. You harvest bitterness to feed sweetness. It's a strange economy, but it works. Like everything else out here that refuses to smile and somehow keeps the world alive. The rock face looms like a deadline. You wedge, you pry, you pound iron into limestone until the mountain sighs and lets go. Dust coats your tongue, the air tastes like caves, and the block you just freed weighs as much as regret. Teams chant to lift, and you shuffle forward with an object that could erase a toe and a career. Modern comparison. Office job. If the copier could kill you and the printer paper came in 12-ton pallets. Let's talk stone. This is Jerusalem limestone. Melicky when you're lucky. Soft when quarried. Hard as character once it meets air. Mizzy when the foreman wants you to prove something. The face shows bedding planes like lines in a psalm. You read them with your fingers, pick the seam that will break true, and sketch your cut with red ochre and a plumb line. The square tells you where rectangular lives. The foreman tells you to make it bigger. It's time for tools. Your iron set has personalities. Point chisel to start the groove, tooth chisel to chew, flat chisel to finish, and a maul that discusses theology with your elbow. You drive a channel around 3 sides of the future block, neat and deep, then undercut with a barred pick and a prayer. For stubborn beds, you tap in dry wooden wedges and trick them with water. They swell, the stone whispers, fine, and a hairline travels like gossip until the mountain lets go with a sigh you feel in your ribs. Sound owns the day. Hammer on iron, iron on stone, stone on silence. Every strike echoes off the quarry walls and comes back as a reminder to keep your thumbs out of the conversation. The dust is a second atmosphere. Chalky, lemon on the tongue, in your hair, tracing your eyelashes like early snow. You wet a cloth and tie it over your mouth. It filters the dust and advertises your fashion sense to no one. Let's talk Herod. The man builds like anxiety in a crown. Temple courts, towers, palaces, harbours. His overseers show up with wax tablets and measurements in cubits that always end with plus margin. You leave a raised boss on each block, a proud bulge for levers and tongs, so the lifting gear can grip without chewing the finished face. Later, a stone dresser will draft a smooth margin around the edges, leaving the boss to catch the light, a Herodian signature that says, overbuilt and proud of it. Moving day arrives. You slide rollers under the block, lever it up with bars, and chant in time with a capstan team while the rope creaks like an old prophet. Oxen lean into the trace. Men walk backward, faces set, arms out, toes desperate. You lay a road of beaten earth and crushed lime, water it to keep the dust down, and sprinkle sand because friction is a theology you prefer friendly. Corners get skids, knuckles get opinions. It's time for lunch. Bad idea. To sit on the block you just freed. You eat on a ledge in the shade. Bread, olives, maybe a dried fig if your wife outloved the market. Water tastes like leather and limestone, which is today's perfume anyway. Someone tells the story about Solomon's temple stones being finished at the quarry, so no iron was heard on the mount. You nod. Herod keeps that tradition. Dress it here, roll it there, keep the holy hill quiet. You respect a job that allows worship to sound like worship, and not your hammer. Hazards, gravity with an attitude. A chisel chips, the shard kisses your cheek and writes its name. A wedge rebounds. You learn to stand like a man who enjoys knees. A rope phrase, no one likes a sermon about that. You check your knots like you check your soul, twice, with a friend. The face can spoil without warning. You keep clear, you keep shoulders loose. You keep the new boy from learning safety by legend. Finishing is a conversation. The dresser takes your rough block and, with a flat chisel and patience, drafts a clean margin that frames the face. The aris, that sharp edge, could shave a priest if it wanted. You rub it down to amiable. A layer of white lime dust coats your forearms to the elbow, like you've been baptized by a sack of flour. You look over the courses already laid at the site, joints so tight a bee would file a complaint, and you feel small in the good way. Modern comparison? You manage deadlines you can't lift, compliance that can crush, and deliverables that must be square enough to impress men who measure with temple standards. Your email is a runner with a tablet. Your undo button is a pry bar and a dozen friends. By sundown, you've walked a block as far as a sensible person would drive it. The face of the quarry glows honey in the low light. The scaffolds throw long stripes on the ground. You sweep chips into piles for lime burners, stack tools where tomorrow can find them, and wash your hands in a trough that turns to milk with one rinse. You head home down a road you helped make smooth enough for a king. Your ears still ring, your shoulders hum. Your pockets hold 3 chips of meliki you'll hand to a child who calls them treasure. You built a thing no one will read your name on. That's fine. The mountain knows. So does the echo. Night shift at the olive press. The stone wheel groans as the mule circles. The paste oozes fragrance and fatigue. You stack woven mats, weight them with beams, and watch liquid gold weep into jars that will burn in lamps and sizzle in pans. Your hands shine, your feet stick. Your tunic learns about stains that are technically beatitudes. Modern comparison, espresso machine barista. If the beans were fruit, the creamer was salvation, and the cleanup took till Passover. Let's talk fruit. Harvest runs on ladders and family debts. Late autumn to midwinter, when olives go from green to purple and your knuckles agree with weather reports. You bring them in baskets, sort out the twigs and smug beetles, and pour the fruit into the mill's shallow basin. The mule leans, the wheel rolls. Olives surrender with a sound halfway between a sigh and a sermon. Pits crack, flesh smears into a glossy paste, and the air turns into a perfume that forgives most life choices. It's time for malaxing. Fancy word for stir and wait. You fold the paste with a wooden paddle for a long, patient minute that lasts 40. Tiny oil droplets meet, shake hands, and gather like a congregation. Warmth helps, not heat, because burnt oil smells like theology gone wrong. You test a smear between thumb and forefinger. If it strings, it's ready. If it sulks, keep paddling and reconsider your career. Now the stack. You spoon paste onto round woven mats, skirtings made from palm fibre and stubbornness. Then build a tower on the press bed. Matte paste, higher and heavier. A wedding cake for people who really like salads. You slide the pack beneath the beam press. The beam is a tree that learned leverage. Stone weights hang from the far end like planets. You crank a screw or wedge post until the beam lowers into duty. The mats compress. The pace sighs. An amber stream begins. Let's talk fractions. The first drip is aristocratic, extra virgin in an era before labels. Clear, green gold, fit for lamps in holy places and heads that need blessing. Pure oil of pressed olives was Moses' memo for the lamp that never sleeps. You decant this first run into clean amphorae that you don't let anyone sneeze near. Second press, with more pressure, gives kitchen oil, good for pans and hungry cousins. A third, with hot water persuasion, becomes soap and treatment for door hinges, named Mordecai. The senses file their report. Oil scents the room like cut grass, apple skins and forgiveness. The floor turns into a suggestion. You move like a pilgrim on ice. Your hands glow under lamplight. Your hair decides to join the offering. Somewhere a jar clinks, music for people who balance liquid payroll in the dark. The mule snorts, shakes his harness, and looks at you with eyes that say, "We agreed on circles." It's time for lunch. Bad idea. You will eat anyway. Bread dipped in fresh oil, a pinch of salt. Maybe a smashed olive if you can find one that escaped destiny. It's sacrament adjacent and burns a trail of gratitude down your throat. You wipe your chin with your sleeve. Your sleeve files a complaint. Safety matters. Lamps are far from the press. Oil mist is something you cannot pray a fire out of. You tie your tunic hem, keep your sandals under control, and store full jars in a cool niche where they can settle. Water separates under the oil in the jars. Vegetation water heavy with bitterness. In the morning, you'll decant the top carefully into fresh vessels, like moving a sleeping child from cart to bed. Let's talk commerce. A runner from town wants lamp oil, pure enough for festivals. You gesture to the first run amphorae and quote a price that reminds him quality is expensive and also nocturnal. Another buyer brings fish from Magdala, salted tight. He needs oil for the pan and a favour on the next load of olives. You swap a skin of oil for a parcel of gossip and a promise. Olive economy is half trade, half trust, and 2/3 nap you won't get. Modern comparison. You're the late-night barista whose shots are measured in cubits. The tamper is a beam, the puck is a mat, and the creamer lights the world. Your loyalty program is bring back the amphora unbroken. By cockcrow, the beam creaks up. The mats hang limp like the end of a fast, and the floor is a mosaic of footprints. You'll scrub until the room remembers its stone. You cap the jars with pottery discs and warm wax. You scratch a mark for first, or kitchen, or soap, because confusion is how you turn profit into apologies. The mule gets a nose rub and a blessing. So do you. You blow out the lamp and step into night gone thin. Your hands still smell like Eden. Somewhere a widow will light her room with your hours. Somewhere bread will crackle under a sheen of your midnight. You walk home shining a little, which is either oil or joy. Probably both. Toe the line, literally. You climb into the press with clean feet and questionable decisions. Cool juice climbs your calves as you tread to a rhythm older than arguments. Bees visit. You pretend you're fine. The must splashes. Laughter rises. Stains. Bloom that no fuller can erase. By sundown you smell like harvest and childhood, and your legs look like they lost a fight with a plum. Modern comparison. Group fitness class. where the floor is grapes and the sauna is the sky. Let's talk setup. The wine press is a carved stone basin, shallow but wide, with a channel leading to a lower vat where the juice collects. You and your fellow treaders, cousins, neighbours, anyone with feet and a sense of humour, line up at dawn, tunics hitched, hair tied back, and a prayer that the wasps are feeling merciful. The grapes are dumped in by the basketful, green and purple, fat with promise and a little dust from the road. It's time for technique. You start slow, toes curling into the cool fruit, heels pressing down, a gentle rhythm to break skins without breaking spirits. The first crush is a squelch and a giggle. The second is a chorus, as everyone finds their balance and the juice begins to rise. You stomp, you twist, you shuffle in a circle, arms linked for support or just to keep from falling. The must, fresh grape juice, splashes up your shins sticky and cold, and you learn quickly to keep your mouth closed unless you want a snack with extra protein. The senses are on high alert. The air is thick with sweetness, a perfume of sun-warmed grapes, green stems, and the faint tang of yeast already waking up. Bees and flies hover, drawn by the scent and the spectacle. Your feet slip on grape skins, your calves ache, and your knees turn a shade of purple that would make a royal jealous. Laughter bounces off the stone walls, mixing with the slap of feet and the occasional yelp when someone steps on a surprise pebble. Let's talk yield. As you tread, the juice flows through the channel into the lower vat, carrying flecks of skin and seeds. The first run, free-run juice, is the pride of the vintage. Clear, bright, destined for the best amphorae and the choicest tables. After the initial treading, the pomace, what's left of the skins and seeds, is gathered and pressed under a wooden beam or heavy stones to squeeze out every last drop. Nothing is wasted. Even the lees, the sediment, will find a use in vinegar or as a cleaning agent. It's time for lunch. Bad idea. You eat anyway, perched on the edge of the press, bread in one hand, a handful of grapes in the other, juice running down your wrists. Someone passes a skin of last year's wine, and you toast the harvest, the sun, and the fact that your feet are still attached. You wipe your hands on your tunic, which is now a tapestry of stains and memories. Hazards, slippery footing, bee stings, sunburn, and the eternal risk of being the one who falls in and becomes the joke for the next 3 festivals. You keep an eye on the youngest treaders who think it's a swimming pool, and on the oldest who know all the songs and none of the moderation. Let's talk tradition. Treading is work, but it's also celebration, a communal ritual that marks the end of one season and the promise of another. The prophet spoke of vats overflowing as a sign of blessing. You feel that hope in every sticky step. By sundown, the press is empty, the vat is full, and your legs are a patchwork of purple, blue, and pride. Modern comparison. It's a group workout with a side of nostalgia, a spa day for your calves, and a team-building exercise where the only equipment is fruit and laughter. You leave the press tired, stained, and oddly joyful, carrying the scent of harvest and the memory of a day when work tasted like celebration. You walk home barefoot, grape skins between your toes, knowing that in a few months, someone will pour a cup of wine and taste the echo of your laughter. That's vintage worth remembering. The potter's studio needs clay, and clay prefers to hide. You gouge rich earth from a bank that squelches like soup. You cart it to a pit, soak, sieve, and stomp till the lumps surrender. Your reward? Watching someone else make something beautiful while you peel mud off your ankles like a second skin. Modern comparison. Setting up the craft fair. while your friend sells out. You are the unsung hymn beneath every jar. Let's talk location. Clay doesn't advertise. You learn to read the land, where rain pools, where reeds grow thick, where the earth is heavy and your sandals sink with a sigh. The best veins are a secret between you, the river, and a few generations of backs that remember. You dig with a mattock and a wide-bladed shovel, prying up sticky, ochre-rich earth that clings to the tool and your ambitions. Each load is a gamble. Too sandy and the pots will crack. Too stony and the wheel will complain. It's time for transport. Bad idea to skimp on the cart. Wet clay is heavier than a grudge. You load baskets or a barrow, shoulders straining, and trudge to the studio's soaking pit. The sun bakes your neck. The mud splatters your calves. You pause to catch your breath and watch the potter's apprentice glance up, then quickly look away. Everyone knows who does the dirty work. Processing is where the magic and the mess happens. You dump the raw clay into a pit and flood it with water, stirring with a paddle until the lumps dissolve into a thick, soupy slip. You sieve the mixture through a mesh of reeds or coarse cloth, catching stones, roots, and the occasional confused beetle. What passes through settles into a smooth, heavy layer at the bottom, pure potential, waiting for hands more famous than yours. Let's talk technique. Once the slip settles, you drain off the water and scoop the clay onto a plaster slab or a patch of sun-warmed ground. You knead and stomp, folding the mass over itself to drive out air pockets and blend the texture. Your feet and hands become tools, pressing, turning, testing for that perfect balance of plasticity and strength. If the clay's too wet, you let the sun do its work. Too dry, you add a splash from the jar. It's a dance with the elements, and you lead with muddy feet. Hazards, blisters, sunburn, and the eternal risk of stepping on something sharp, hidden in the muck. The clay pit is a slippery negotiation between gravity and pride. You learn to move slow, to brace yourself, to laugh when you fall, because everyone does, eventually. You wash off in the stream, but the mud lingers, a badge of the work no one sees. It's time for lunch. Bad idea. You eat anyway, perched on a rock, bread in one hand and a stick in the other to flick away flies. The clay under your nails flavors everything. You watch the potter at the wheel, hands coaxing bowls and jars from the stuff you hauled. The kiln waits, hungry and hot, ready to turn mud into memory. Let's talk recognition. The market praises the potter's skill, the glazer's shine, the painter's steady hand. No one asks about the digger, the stomper, the one who found the earth's secret and made it ready. That's fine. You know every vessel's first story, how it began in the riverbank, how it passed through your hands before it ever spun on the wheel. Modern comparison. You're the roadie at the concert, the stagehand at the play, the foundation beneath the house. Your work is invisible until it isn't, until a jar cracks and someone remembers the value of good clay. By sundown, you've washed your feet, stacked your tools, and watched the day's haul settle in the pit. Tomorrow, the potter will shape something lasting. Tonight, you rest with the quiet satisfaction of knowing that beauty starts in the mud, and so does you. Pick up a shovel. Rome picked up your calendar. You grade, tamp, and lay stones in tidy layers until a straight line slices the hills like a sword. The surveyor waves a stick. The centurion waves a stick louder. You build a future you may never walk, except you will, because taxes. Modern comparison. Highway construction with more sandals and fewer cones. Your hard hat is a hat that is not hard. The empire's roads are not just dirt tracks, they're feats of engineering, ambition, and relentless labor. Each mile is a recipe in 4 layers. Statumen, the foundation, made of large flat stones, hand-placed and grumbled over. Rudus, a layer of gravel, lime and broken pottery, tamped down until it's as stubborn as a tax collector. Nucleus, finer gravel and sand, wetted and packed until it's smoother than a senator's promise. Summum dorsum, the top, large paving stones, fitted so tight you could lose a coin and never see it again. You dig the trench, grade the slope, and haul stones from the nearest quarry, see, hammer and echo. Every layer is checked, measured, and occasionally yelled at by a centurion who thinks plumb line is a personality trait. You rise before dawn when the air is cool, and the only thing louder than the birds is the foreman's whistle. The trench is dug, the statumen laid, and you tamp until your bones hum. Gravel goes in, water is sprinkled, and you dance a slow shuffle with the tamping bar. The nucleus layer is poured and levelled. Then the paving stones are set with a mallet and a prayer for no rain. Lunch? Bad idea. You eat anyway. Bread, olives, maybe a wedge of cheese if the paymaster's in a good mood. You sit on a half-finished curb, dust in your teeth, and watch the surveyor argue with the centurion about true north. You don't care. You just want the stones to fit. Your toolkit is simple, but punishing. Shovel, wooden handle, iron edge, blisters included. Pickaxe, for prying up roots and pride. Tamping bar, heavy, loud, and the reason your shoulders look like you wrestle oxen for fun. Plumb line and groma, the surveyor's magic wands for keeping things straight, because Rome doesn't do meandering. Cart, for hauling gravel, stones, and the occasional worker who forgot to duck. Hazards are everywhere. Sunburn, backache, blisters, snakes and scorpions hiding under stones, and centurions who are louder than both. You work in teams, passing stones hand to hand, chanting to keep the rhythm. Sometimes a legionnaire helps, mostly to show off. You let him. He'll be gone by next week. You'll still be here. You're not just building a road. You're laying down empire, trade, armies, taxes, news, and the occasional runaway goat. The milestones you set will outlast your sandals. Merchants, messengers, and emperors will travel what you built, never knowing your name. Modern comparison. You're a highway crew with no overtime, no reflective vests, and a project manager who wears armor. Your work is the line between here and there, and you'll walk it, mile by mile, every time Rome remembers you exist. By sundown, the road gleams in the low light, a promise stretching to the horizon. You shoulder your tools, dust off your hat, and head home along the very stones you set. Tomorrow, the road will be longer. So will your story. Sit down behind a wooden box and become a symbol everyone loves to hate. You tally grain, count coins, and write names with a reed while pretending not to notice the glares. Your math is excellent. Your social life is concussed. You didn't set the rates, you just enforce them. Modern comparison. Customer service for fees the company invented at 3 a.m. Redemption Arc sold separately and involves leaving everything at your desk. Your office is a booth at the city gate or crossroads, prime real estate for resentment. The box is sturdy, the stool is not, and the shade is a rumor. On your table, a wax tablet for quick math, a scroll for records, a reed pen, an ink pot, and a set of weights that are certified, but always suspicious. You wear a tunic with extra pockets for coins and a face that says, "I'm just doing my job." You arrive early, before the market stirs, and set out your tools. The first customers are farmers with sacks of barley, fishermen with baskets of sardines, traders with camels and opinions. You weigh, you count, you record. Every transaction gets a mark, name, amount, payment, and a note if someone tried to slip you a chipped denarius. You know everyone's business, and everyone knows you know. Step 1. Weigh the goods. Slide the weights. Check the balance. Ignore the muttering. Grain, fish, wool, wine. Each with its own rate, each with its own loophole. You keep a sharp eye for tricks. A thumb on the scale. A hidden stone in the sack. A coin that's been shaved thin by a desperate hand. Step 2. Calculate and collect. You announce the tax. Collect the payment. Sometimes coins, sometimes produce, sometimes a favor or a threat. You issue a receipt, a mark on a wax tablet, a nod, and a prayer you don't get shorted. If someone can't pay, you record the debt and hope the overseer doesn't ask too many questions. Step 3. Record and repeat. You write every name, every amount, every transaction. The scroll grows heavier with each line. Inspectors from Rome or the local governor might appear at any moment, demanding neat records and honest answers. You keep your ledgers clean, your explanations cleaner. There isn't one. You're the face of Rome or Herod or whoever's name is on the tax edict this week. People greet you with forced politeness, then cross the street when your shift ends. Children dare each other to touch your booth. Merchants smile with their teeth, not their eyes. The synagogue committee never invites you to anything. You eat lunch alone. Bread, olives, maybe a fig if you're feeling optimistic. While listening to the city hum around you, just out of reach. Bribes are offered with a wink or a threat. You keep your nose clean mostly. Angry customers shout, "I paid last week. That's not my donkey. Your weights are heavy." You've heard it all. Sometimes you wish you could explain. You didn't invent the system. You just keep it running. Bandits are a risk. The booth is sturdy, but not a fortress. You keep a stick under the table and a friend on the watch. Inspectors bring surprise audits. You double-check your sums, hoping your memory is as sharp as your pen. You know the stories. Tax collectors who left it all behind. Levi, Zacchaeus, trading ledgers for something lighter. You wonder what it would take. A word, a look, a chance to be more than a sum of other people's debts. By sundown, your fingers are stained with ink. Your ears ring with complaints, and your ledger is balanced. You close the booth, tuck the coins into a locked box, and walk home in the long shadow of your own reputation. Tomorrow, you'll do it again, unless someone calls your name, and you find the courage to answer. Take a chisel to the hillside and carve bedrooms for the quiet. Tomb cutting is measured in echoes and patience. Every flake of stone a countdown in reverse. You work where cool air lives and visitors leave fast. Sometimes a family brings spices and tears. Sometimes they just bring a deadline. Modern comparison. Basement contractor for clients who never complain and never move out. Your day begins before the sun climbs the ridge, when the world is still hushed and the city's noise is a distant rumor. The hillside is your canvas. Limestone soft enough to yield to iron, hard enough to last centuries. You haul your tools up the slope, iron chisels for detail work, heavy mallets for persuasion, wedges and levers for the big breaks, pickaxe for roughing out the first hollow oil lamp for the hours when sunlight won't reach. You mark the outline with red ochre, then begin the slow, echoing work of turning living rock into a resting place. The first blows are always the hardest. Stone resists, and your arms remember every job before this one. Step 1. Mark and measure. The family chooses a spot, sometimes a new cave, sometimes an extension of an old one. You measure with a plumb line and a practiced eye, sketching the doorway and the niches inside. The entrance must be just wide enough for a body, just tall enough for a final dignity. Step 2. Rough out the chamber pickaxe first, carving a shallow entrance. You widen and deepen stone by stone, the sound of your labour muffled by the earth. Each swing is a subtraction, a slow making of emptiness. The air grows cooler as you work inward, the light dimmer, the silence deeper. Step 3. Shape the niches. Tombs are not just holes, they're rooms, with benches for bodies, shelves for jars, and sometimes a carved pillow for the head. You chisel the loculi, body slots, with care, smoothing the walls so linen won't snag. Every detail matters. This is a family's last gift to their own. Step 4. Finishing touches. The doorway gets a lip for the rolling stone, or a slot for a ceiling slab. You carve a gutter for rainwater, a small vent for air, and sometimes a family name above the entrance, if they can afford the extra. You sweep out the dust, set aside the best chips for lime burners, and step back to inspect your work. Sound. Hammer on stone, echoing in a space that grows with every hour. Silence returns quickly, thick and respectful. Touch. Dust on your skin, grit in your hair, calluses that remember every job. Sight. The slow reveal of a room from darkness, the play of lamplight on fresh-cut walls. Smell. Earth, sweat, and, on delivery day, the sharp tang of myrrh and aloes. Cave-ins are a risk. You read the rock for cracks, listening for the warning sigh of shifting stone. Bad air is another. You keep the lamp burning low, and if it flickers, you step out fast. Loneliness is the only constant. The only voices are your own, bouncing back in fragments. You get used to the company of silence. You don't get many visitors, just the family, once or twice, and the occasional priest to check for ritual purity. Payment is half up front, half on completion. Sometimes it's coins, sometimes a goat, sometimes a promise to remember your name at the next festival. Lunch. Bad idea. You eat anyway, sitting on a block of limestone, bread in one hand, chisel in the other. The view is always the same. Stone, shadow, and the slow progress of a room for the end of the story. You're a basement contractor, a stonemason, and a silent witness to grief. Your clients never complain, never move out, and never ask for renovations. Your work is invisible until it's needed. Then it's everything. By sundown, you sweep the dust from the threshold, pack your tools, and step into the fading light. The hillside holds your handiwork in quiet trust. Tomorrow, another family, another echo, another room for the silence that waits for us all. Climb the steps, scan the horizon, and become the human version of Are We There Yet? Your shift is wind, dust, and the occasional trumpet. You learn clouds, footprints, and whether that glimmer is a friend with bread or an army with overtime. No news, best news. Modern comparison. Night security with fewer coffee breaks and more profits. Try not to fall asleep. People write about that. Your office is a stone tower or a stretch of city wall, high above the market's noise and the shepherd's songs. The view is panoramic. Fields, roads, distant hills, and the shimmer of heat or the hush of moonlight. Your uniform? A tunic, a cloak for the cold, and a belt for your horn and knife. Your desk is a parapet, your chair a block of stone, and your co-workers are ravens, bats, and the occasional bored archer. You climb the stairs as the city settles, trading jokes with the last baker and nods with the gatekeeper. You pace the wall, eyes sweeping the horizon, mind cataloguing every flicker and shadow. You learn to read the land. Dust rising means travellers. A sudden hush means something is watching back. Step 1. Scan for movement. You know every tree, every rock, every trick of the light. A cloud of dust could mean a merchant caravan or a raiding party. A glint at dawn might be a friend's shield or a stranger's spear. You squint, you shade your eyes, you learn patience. Step 2. Signal the city. Your tools are simple but crucial. Trumpet or shofar. 1 blast for visitors, 3 for trouble. A long wail for everyone up now. Torch, for night signals or to spot movement in the dark. Voice, for the changing of the guard or to call down to the gate. Step 3. Check the gates. You make sure they're barred at night, open at dawn, and never left to someone else's job. You know the hinges, the locks, the sound of a gate that's not quite right. Step 4. Stay awake. The oldest rule. Drowsy watchmen get remembered in all the wrong stories. You pace, you sing, you splash water on your face, you pray for dawn. Sight. You know the difference between a cloud of sheep and a cloud of dust. You spot a torch a mile away, a glint of spearhead at dawn, the slow creep of shadow that means someone is testing your patience. Sound. Wind in the stones, the distant call of a shepherd, the sudden silence that means listen closer. Smell. Smoke from campfires, rain on dust, the sharp tang of fear when the alarm is real. Boredom. The enemy of vigilance. You invent games, counting stars, naming clouds, composing psalms in your head. Weather. Sunburn by day, frostbite by night. Wind that tries to steal your cloak and your balance. Sleep. The greatest danger. You pace, you sing, you splash water on your face, you pray for dawn. False alarms. Every shadow is a potential story. Better to wake the city for nothing than to sleep through something. You're respected, but distant. People nod as you pass, grateful you're up there so they can sleep down here. Children wave, elders bring bread. Prophets sometimes stop to ask what you see, literal and otherwise. You're the first to know news, the last to spread gossip, and the only one who can say, all is well, and make it mean something. Your night security, air traffic control, and the neighborhood watch, all rolled into one, minus the coffee breaks. Your job is invisible until it isn't, and then it's the only job that matters. By sunrise, your eyes ache, your legs are stiff, and your mind is full of clouds and questions. You climb down, hand off the horn, and walk home through a city that slept because you didn't. No news. Best news. You'll take it. Welcome to Logistics, Ancient Edition. Your clients spit, the camels. Your inventory hums, also the camels. And your route is follow that mirage till noon. You load bales, balance water, and argue with a creature that kneels only when persuaded by snacks and scripture. Nights are cold, stars are loud, and you learn to sleep with one eye on the saddlebags. Modern comparison. Long-haul trucking if the trucks had opinions and eyelashes. Your office is the oasis, palms, a spring, and a patchwork of tents and bales. The air smells of dust, dung, and dates. Your uniform is a sun-bleached tunic, a headscarf, and sandals that know every pebble between here and Damascus. Your co-workers, a dozen camels, 3 cousins, and a merchant who thinks he's in charge. You start before dawn, when the desert is still cool and the camels are only half awake. You check the water skins, count the bales, and eye the horizon for the first hint of sun. The camels grumble, stretch, and eye you with suspicion. They know what's coming. Step 1. Water and feed. You water the camels in strict order. Hierarchy is real, and so is camel drama. The lead camel drinks first, the youngest last. You check hooves for cracks, brush out burrs, and rub noses with the friendliest, or least grumpy, of the herd. Step 2. Load the bale's spices, wool, copper, glass, and the occasional don't ask parcel. You balance the load on each camel's back, tying knots that would make a sailor proud. Too much weight on one side, and you'll hear about it for miles. Camels are not shy about their opinions. Step 3. Set out. You lead the string. First camel is the boss. Last camel is the gossip. The route is a line of hope across the sand, marked by wells, old bones, and the memory of those who didn't make it. You watch for stragglers. Keep an eye on the merchant's son, who always wants to ride but never wants to walk, and scan the horizon for bandits or storms. Step 4. On the move, you sing or shout to keep the pace and the spirits up. The sun climbs, the sand heats, and the mirages dance. You ration water, check the loads, and occasionally stop to adjust a slipping bale or soothe a stubborn beast with a handful of dates. Step 5. Nightfall. You unload and hobble the camels. If you don't, they'll wander, and so will thieves. You check the water, eat quickly, flatbread, dried fruit, and a handful of dates if the camels don't get there first, and stretch out under the stars. Sleep is light. One ear for the camels, one for the wind. Sight. Endless sand, swaying camel hips, the hopeful glint of a distant well. Sound, grumbling, humming, and the occasional bellow that means I'm bored or I'm plotting. Touch, rope burns, calloused hands, and the soft brush of camel fur right before the bite. Smell, sweat, leather, and the perfume of frankincense, if you're lucky. Sandstorms can turn the day to night in minutes. Tie everything down, including your temper. Thirst is a constant threat. Water is life, and you guard it like treasure. Bandits are a risk, so you keep your staff handy and your valuables hidden deep. And then there are the camels. They kneel when they want, spit when they don't, and remember every slight. You're a long-haul trucker, warehouse manager, and animal psychologist rolled into one. Your fleet has humps, your GPS is the North Star, and your delivery window is before the next sandstorm. By dawn, you're up again, counting camels, checking loads, and scanning the sky. The road is long, the pay is in stories, and the only thing certain is that the camels will get there, eventually, and on their own terms. Sit, breathe, and let your back become a question mark. Your tools: reed pen, ink of soot and gum, a straight edge, and fear of smudges. You copy line after line, letter after letter, pausing to stretch one hand and pray with the other. A fly lands. You become righteous. Modern comparison: data entry with holiness and a zero error tolerance. One blotch and you're memorizing Leviticus for fun. Your office is a quiet corner of the synagogue, a scriptorium, or the back room of a scholar's house. Light filters in, never too much, never too little. Your desk is a plank on two stones, your chair a cushion that remembers better days. On the table, scrolls and templates. The master copy, rolled with reverence. Reed pens, cut to a fine point, trimmed and tested. Ink, soot, gum arabic, water, and a dash of ritual. Straight edge, for lines straighter than your spine. Knife, for scraping, away mistakes, if you're lucky and the parchment is forgiving. You begin with ritual. Wash your hands, whisper a prayer, and check the ink's consistency. The parchment is unrolled, the master scroll aligned, and you take a deep breath, one that will have to last for hours. Before you begin, recite the first line aloud, letting the words settle in your mind and on your tongue. Dip the pen, test the flow, and steady your hand. Copying, letter by letter, not word by word. Precision is the law. Whisper each word as you write, so the tongue keeps the hand honest. Pause for sacred names. Write with extra care, sometimes with a fresh pen. Check every line, every margin, every tiny crown on every letter. Interruptions. A fly lands. You freeze. You wait. You do not swat. A cough, a sneeze, a neighbour's child. You start the line again. If you blotch, you scrape. If you smudge, you sigh. If you err on a sacred name, you start over. Breaks. Stretch your fingers, roll your shoulders, rub your eyes. Sip water, nibble bread, and pray for steady hands. The senses sight. Black on cream, line after line, the slow march of meaning. Sound. The scratch of pen, the whisper of lips, the hush of reverence. Touch. Parchment smooth and cool, ink sticky and alive, the ache of hours. Smell. Soot, gum, old leather, and the faint tang of anxiety. Hazards, fatigue. Your back curves, your eyes blur, your hand cramps. Ink spills. One drop. And a day's work is a lesson in humility. Errors. A single letter wrong, and the meaning shifts. You check, double check, and check again. Perfectionism. The law demands it, your soul attempts it. You're respected, but solitary. People trust your work but rarely see you do it. You're the quiet engine of tradition, the silent scribe behind every public reading. Children peek in, wide-eyed. Elders nod, remembering when their hands were steady. You're a data entry specialist, a calligrapher, and a human spell checker. Except your typos are theological events. Your performance review is read aloud on Sabbath. Your margin for error is zero, and your reward is knowing the word endures because your hand did not fail. By dusk, your fingers are stained, your back is sore, and your scroll is a little longer. You roll it up, cover it with cloth, and whisper a prayer of thanks for ink, light, and another day without a blotch. Tomorrow, you'll write again. One letter, one line, one sacred breath at a time. Civic pride smells like vinegar and decisions. You sweep alleys, shovel refuse, and maintain a public latrine that is somehow both engineering and mystery. Fresh water flows. Not fresh everything else follows. Your pole, your broom, and your sense of humour are all that stand between the city and pestilence. Modern comparison, facility management with bonus sandals, and a job title no one carves into marble. Your office is the underbelly of civilization. Alleyways lined with shops, homes, and the occasional goat with boundary issues. Public latrines, stone benches with keyhole seats, running water beneath, and a steady clientele ranging from senators to street kids. Your uniform, tunic, sandals, and a scarf for your nose. Your badge of office. A broom, a bucket, and a pole with a sponge on a stick, the original toilet brush. Broom. The purpose is to sweep dust, leaves, and dignity shovel. For removing refuse, manure, and surprises. A vinegar bucket. This is for disinfecting, deodorizing, and courage. Sponge on a stick for cleaning latrine seats and drains. Water jar to rinsing, washing, and sometimes bribing an oil lamp for early mornings and dark corners. Morning. Sweep the alleys before the market crowds arrive. Shovel up refuse, food scraps, animal droppings, and whatever the night left behind. Sprinkle vinegar or lime to keep the flies and the smell in check. Latrine duty. Check the water flow, fresh water in, wastewater out. Scrub the benches and seats with vinegar and a strong stomach. Clear blockages from the drains with a pole and a prayer. Replace the communal sponge, rinse in vinegar, repeat as needed. Throughout the day, patrol the busiest alleys, sweeping and shoveling as needed. Empty refuse carts at the city dump or into the night soil pits. Smile at the people who pretend not to see you and tip the ones who do. The senses sight, a city's secrets, from lost coins to lost sandals. Sound, the splash of water, the scrape of broom on stone, the mutter of complaints. Smell, vinegar, sewage, and the faint hope of a breeze. Touch, calloused hands, damp sandals, and the occasional rat tail. Hazard's disease. You're the first line of defense against plague and pestilence. Injury, slippery stones, sharp pottery shards, and the odd angry dog. Dignity. The job is thankless, but the city would collapse without you. You know every shortcut, every gossip, and every merchant who owes you a favor for accidentally sweeping their doorstep twice. Children wave, elders nod, and the city's health depends on your unseen labor. You eat lunch in the shade, bread in one hand, broom in the other, and listen to the city hum above the drains. You're a facility manager, janitor, and public health officer rolled into one. Your building is the whole city. Your clients are everyone. And your performance review is the absence of an epidemic. By sundown, the alleys are swept, the latrines are clean, enough, and the city breathes easier. You hang up your broom, rinse your hands, and walk home with the quiet pride of someone who keeps civilization running. One sweep at a time. Flip open your manual, Levitical edition, and put on your calm voice. You're the priest who determines whether that patch is clean, unclean, or come back in 7 days and don't moisturize. You squint at hair colors you never wanted to learn, measure swelling, and pronounce outcomes with the gravity of a courtroom. It's compassion, caution, and clinical language before antibiotics. Modern comparison, dermatology, but your lab coat is linen and your waiting room is the camp gate. This was public health meets pastoral care in an age without microscopes. Leviticus 13 reads like a diagnostic flowchart designed by someone deeply concerned about contagion, but working entirely by visual inspection. You'd examine the skin, note whether the affected hair had turned white, check if the condition had spread, and make a call that could isolate someone from the community for weeks or restore them to normal life immediately. The stakes were social, spiritual, and practical all at once. The terminology was blunt, zara'at, often translated as leprosy, but likely covering a range of skin conditions from psoriasis to fungal infections. The priest wasn't diagnosing the disease in a modern medical sense, but determining ritual status, which had massive social implications. Being declared unclean meant living outside the camp, covering your upper lip, and shouting unclean when anyone approached. It was quarantine enforced by religious law, brutal in its isolation, but arguably effective at containing infectious disease in a nomadic population with no pharmaceuticals. Your diagnostic toolkit was limited but specific. Observe the depth of the sore, check for raw flesh, note any spreading, watch for discoloration. If uncertain, you'd impose a waiting period, a built-in safety mechanism that gave borderline cases time to develop or resolve. 7 days later, they'd return for re-examination. If the condition had faded, they were declared clean. If it had spread, they were officially unclean. The system had a kind of methodical logic, even if the science behind it was centuries away. The emotional weight of this role can't be overstated. You weren't just reading symptoms, you were determining someone's immediate future, their ability to hug their children, eat with their family, or participate in worship. A wrong call could expose the community to disease or unnecessarily exile a healthy person. So you learn to look carefully, to wait when needed, and to follow the protocol exactly. The priest functioned as gatekeeper between the sick and the well, between isolation and community, wielding tremendous power with nothing but observation and ancient guidelines. It was medicine's infancy, wrapped in religious authority, doing its imperfect best to protect a vulnerable population from invisible threats. The household is asleep, but the quernstone is hungry. You kneel, pour grain into the top, and push the upper stone in circles until flour sighs into the bowl. Shoulders burn, wrists hum, time drips. Bread doesn't bake itself. It begins here with grit in your fingernails and hope in the oven. Modern comparison. Meal prep if your blender were a boulder and your timer was sunrise. Your kitchen is a corner of the house, cool before the sun climbs. The quern, a pair of heavy stones, one flat, one round with a wooden handle, waits on a mat. The air smells of yesterday's ashes and tomorrow's bread. Tools of the trade, quernstones, lower, stationary, and upper, rotating. Both worn smooth by years of labour. Wooden handle, for leverage and blisters. Bowl or cloth, to catch the flour as it drifts down. Jar of grain, barley, wheat, or whatever the field and season allowed. Before dawn, kneel beside the quern, skirt tucked, hair tied back. Pour a scoop of grain into the central hole. Grip the handle and begin the slow, steady circles, clockwise, then back, finding the rhythm your mother taught you. Grinding. The stones scrape and sigh, grain cracking, then crumbling, then blooming into flour. Shoulders ache, wrists burn, but you keep the pace. Bread waits for no one. Pause to clear the stones, brush flour into the bowl, and add another handful of grain. Repeat, circle after circle, handful after handful, until the bowl is full and the sun is peeking through the window. The senses sound. The low grind of stone on stone, the whisper of flour, the distant rooster. Touch, warmth from the stones, grit under your nails, the ache in your arms. Smell, earthy grain, the promise of baking, the faint tang of sweat. Sight, pale flour drifting down, the first blush of dawn, shadows shrinking as the day begins. Hazard's blisters, the handle is unforgiving, and the work is endless. Dust, flour in your hair, your nose, your lungs. Fatigue, the stones are heavy, and the family is hungry. Monotony, circle after circle. But every loaf begins here. You're the first awake, the quiet engine of the household. Children stir to the sound of grinding. Neighbors know you by the rhythm of your work. Sometimes another pair of hands joins, mother, daughter, friend, and the work turns to conversation, laughter, or song. Lunch? Not yet. First, the dough must be kneaded, the fire lit, the bread baked. Only then do you rest, knowing tomorrow's dawn will find you here again, feeding the quern and the family. You're a meal prepper, a baker, and a human food processor rolled into one. Your appliance is a relic, your timer is the sun, and your reward is the smell of fresh bread and the quiet pride of work well done. By sunrise, the flour is ready, your arms are tired, and the day can finally begin. Bread doesn't bake itself. It starts with you, the quern, and the hope that rises with the dough. Finally, you're the inbox with legs, a wax tablet tucked in your belt, a water skin bouncing at your hip, and 40 furlongs of don't forget the phrasing. Roads bake, sandals argue, dogs have questions. You memorize the message in case the tablet breaks and pray your tongue doesn't. Modern comparison. Corporate email. But you are the Wi-Fi. Try not to faint before the PS. Your office is the open road, dusty, sun-baked, and full of surprises. You travel light. Wax tablet. For written messages. Sealed with a marquee. It's official. Waterskin. Your lifeline between wells. Sandals. Worn thin, patched often. Always one pebble away from mutiny. Headscarf. For sun, dust, and the occasional disguise. Memory. Because sometimes the message is too urgent or too secret to write down. You're the connective tissue of the ancient world, the reason news travels faster than rumor sometimes. Your job is equal parts endurance, discretion, and improvisation. You don't just carry words, you carry trust, secrets, and sometimes the fate of a city. Before you go receive the message, sometimes it's a wax tablet, sometimes a hurried whisper in your ear. Always important, always urgent. Repeat it back, word for word, until the sender nods. You memorize not just the words, but the tone, the urgency, the don't forget the PS. Check your route, which roads are safe, which villages have water, which dogs bite. You ask around, listen to gossip, and trust your gut. Gear up, tighten your sandals, adjust your headscarf, and make sure your water skin is full. One last look at the sky. Clouds mean luck, clear blue means heat. On the move, set a steady pace, fast enough to matter, slow enough to last. You're not a sprinter, you're a marathon with a deadline. Dodge obstacles, carts, goats, and the occasional Roman patrol. You learn to read the road, where the shade falls, where the stones are loose, where the dogs nap. Sip water sparingly. Shade is a luxury, not a right. You ration every drop, knowing the next well might be dry. Recite the message, over and over, so it doesn't slip away with the sweat. You whisper it under your breath. Set it to a rhythm. Make it a song if you must. Stay alert. Bandits love a lone runner. You keep to the open when you can. Blend in when you must. And always have an escape plan. Delivery arrive, breathless but upright. You wipe the dust from your face, straighten your tunic, and present yourself at the gate. Deliver the message, first from memory, then, if possible, from the tablet. You watch the recipient's face, sometimes relief, sometimes dread, sometimes a quick scribble for your return journey. Wait for a reply, or turn and run back before the sun gets ideas. Sometimes you're sent straight back with a new message. Sometimes you're given a meal and a place to rest. Luxury, if you can spare the time. The senses sight, shimmering roads, distant milestones, the hopeful glint of a well. You learn to spot trouble long before it finds you. Sound, the slap of sandals, the bark of dogs, your own heartbeat in your ears. Sometimes the distant call of a shepherd, sometimes the silence of noon. Touch, hot wind, rough leather, the cool relief of water on your lips, the ache in your calves, the sting of a fresh blister, the weight of the tablet against your hip. Smell, dust, sweat, and the faint tang of olive groves, if you're lucky. Sometimes smoke from a distant fire, sometimes the warning scent of rain. Hazards, heat stroke. The sun is not your friend. You learn to read the signs, dizziness, dry mouth, the urge to lie down and never get up. Blisters. Sandals are honest, and honesty hurts. You patch them with scraps of cloth, but the road always finds a way in. Forgetting. One missed word can change a treaty into a feud, a love letter into a scandal, a warning into a disaster. You double-check, triple-check, and pray your memory holds. Bandits. You run fast, but sometimes not fast enough. You keep your head down, your pace steady, and your valuables hidden deep. Dogs. Always faster than you think. You learn which ones can be bribed with bread, and which ones just want to race. You're known everywhere and nowhere. People wave as you pass, but you rarely stop long enough for names. Children chase you for fun. Elders nod, remembering when their legs were younger. You eat on the run, bread, dried figs, a gulp of water, always with one ear tuned for your name. Sometimes you're the first to bring news of a birth, a wedding, or a victory. Sometimes you're the bearer of bad tidings. Either way, you keep moving. You pick up stories as you go, snippets of gossip, warnings about the road ahead, the best place to refill your water skin. You're a thread in the fabric of the city, weaving news, hope and rumour from gate to gate. You're the email server, the push notification, the urgent Slack ping. Except you sweat, you memorise, and you can't blame the Wi-Fi. Your outbox is your own 2 feet, and your read receipt is a nod at the city gate. You're the difference between I heard and I know. You're the reason the world feels a little smaller, even when the road feels endless. By sundown, you've delivered news, warnings, and the occasional love letter. Your sandals are thinner, your throat is dry, but the message made it. You rest for a moment, watching the sky turn gold, knowing tomorrow brings another message, another road, another chance to run and not trip. The world keeps turning and you keep running because someone, somewhere, is waiting to hear what you have to say.